There is a saying whispered through the ages. A man is not forged by comfort, but in the silent furnace of his choices. In the old days, samurai did not wait for motivation. They carved it into their bones through ritual, repetition, and ruthless honesty with themselves. Their Hageni no Ishi, will of steel, was not a gift of birth, but the result of countless small decisions made when no one was watching. Tonight, I want you to imagine your spirit as a blade resting in the fire. Every distraction is a hammer, every temptation is heat, and every act of self-control is a strike that shapes who you become. If you are ready to stop being a prisoner of impulse and start living with Bushido-like discipline, then lock in, warrior. Comment, I'm forging myself, subscribe, and join this growing clan of modern samurai committed to mastery, not mediocrity. Thank you for standing here with me, as one of the few willing to be tempered by struggle instead of softened by ease. Hansei, ruthless self-reflection, is the moment a warrior stands alone with his own truth. No enemies, no applause, no excuses. Just the quiet sting of reality. In Japanese culture, Hansei is not about self-hatred, but about stepping outside your ego and viewing yourself as if you were a strict yet compassionate master, judging a student. A samurai who failed a task did not drown in shame. He sat in stillness and dissected every movement, every thought, every hesitation. That is Hansei. It means asking, where did I fall short? What did I ignore? What pattern am I refusing to see? Most people run from these questions because they expose weakness. But warriors understand that unexamined weakness becomes a chain around the spirit. When you practice Hansei, you look at your day like a battlefield report. Where did you lose to distraction? Where did you break your word to yourself? Where did you choose comfort over growth? This is not about blaming your past, but about understanding your patterns with brutal clarity. True Hansei feels like standing in front of a mirror that reflects not your face, but your habits. You see the scrolling when you promised to study, the late wake-ups after swearing you'd rise before dawn, the emotional reactions that sabotage your discipline. The ordinary mind tries to dodge this mirror by saying, it's not that bad, or I'll do better tomorrow, without changing anything. The warrior's mind refuses that comfort. Instead, Hansei demands that you replay your actions with precision, like a swordsman reviewing each swing, each step, each breath. You do not say, I lack self-central talk. You say, at 7 p.m., I chose my phone instead of my mission. You do not say, I'm lazy. You say, I hit snooze 3 times because I went to bed at 2 a.m. watching nonsense. Hansei transforms vague guilt into specific insight, and once your failures are specific, they become trainable. You stop seeing your flaws as identity and start seeing them as unrefined steel waiting to be reforged. The power of Hansei is that it turns pain into a forge instead of a prison. When you sit with your mistakes, you are heating the metal. When you admit them without denial, you are placing the blade on the anvil. When you decide how you will act differently tomorrow in concrete, measurable ways, you are swinging the hammer. A warrior devoted to Hansei does not end the day with random regret, but with a deliberate review. What did I intend? What did I actually do? What will I change? This transforms self-reflection into a daily ritual of recalibration. Over time, your self-awareness sharpens. You catch excuses faster, see temptations earlier, and recognize emotional triggers before they hijack your actions. Hansei makes self-control 10x easier because you are no longer surprised by your own weaknesses. You've mapped them, studied them, and prepared counterattacks. You walk into each day not as a victim of hidden patterns, but as a strategist who knows the battlefield of your own mind. Kaizen, daily incremental improvement, is the quiet art of becoming dangerous one small step at a time. It is the opposite of the explosive, short-lived motivation that burns bright for a day and vanishes. In Japanese culture, Kaizen is woven into factories, schools, dojos, and homes as a way of life. Never perfect, always improving. The samurai did not wait for the perfect moment to transform. They sharpened their blade a little each day, trained a little longer, refined their stance a little more. That is Kaizen in its purest form. Instead of chasing massive overnight change, you commit to tiny upgrades you can repeat even on your worst days. One more page read, one more set finished, one more distraction resisted. On the surface, these actions seem small and insignificant, but the warrior understands. The strength you rely on in crisis is built in these quiet, boring repetitions that no one praises. The beauty and brutality of Kaizen is that it exposes your relationship with consistency. Most people only act when they feel like it, so their growth is erratic and fragile. The path of Kaizen demands that you show up whether you are inspired or exhausted, excited or bored. It might mean waking 10 minutes earlier to stretch, journaling for 5 minutes instead of scrolling, or focusing for just 15 minutes of deep work without checking your phone. Your ego will scream, "This is too small to matter." But that is the voice of impatience, not wisdom. A samurai did not master his sword in a week. He simply refused to miss a day. Kaizen trains you to love progress more than perfection, to value direction over speed. You learn to measure your day not by dramatic results, but by whether you honored your tiny commitments. Each small action becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Over time, Kaizen reveals its true power, compounding. What seems like nothing in a single day becomes unstoppable over months and years. One new habit turns into a new identity. Reading a few pages daily reshapes your mind. Training a little each day transforms your body. Practicing restraint in small temptations strengthens your self-betrayal in bigger battles. Kaizen also disarms the excuses that normally derail you. You cannot claim you are too busy for 5 focused minutes. You cannot pretend you don't have time to do one small action that moves you forward. This mindset frees you from the paralysis of all or nothing thinking. Instead of collapsing when you miss a big goal, you simply return to the smallest possible step and rebuild your momentum. In this way, Kaizen does not just improve your skills, it forges your spirit into one that cannot be easily broken, because your progress no longer depends on emotion, circumstance, or motivation, only on your decision to take the next small step. Shuchu Ryoku, or phrased differently. Shuchu Ryoku is the discipline of giving your entire spirit to a single moment, a single task, as if nothing else exists. In the way of the samurai, divided attention meant death. A wandering mind was a broken blade. Shuchu Ryoku is the opposite of the scattered, overstimulated life most people live today. It is the art of cutting through chaos with the sharp edge of concentration. When a warrior draws his sword, he is not thinking about yesterday's failures or tomorrow's worries. He is fully present in the arc of his strike, the feeling of his breath, the distance between life and death. That is the standard. In your life, this means when you study, you only study. When you work, you only work. When you train, you only train. No half-hearted effort, no divided screens, no constant switching. The modern world wages war on your focus. Notifications, social media, endless choices. They fracture your attention into 1,000 dull fragments. Shuchu Ryoku is your counterattack. It begins with creating environments where focus can survive. Silence over noise, clarity over clutter, intention over randomness. A warrior does not train in a room full of distractions. He chooses a place that reminds his mind, here we are serious. You can do the same with simple rituals. Put your phone in another room. Close every tab except the one you need. Write down the single task you will crush in the next 30 or 60 minutes. Treat this block of time like a duel. No escape, no surrender, no multitasking. At first your mind will resist. It will itch for stimulation, crave quick dopamine. But each time you drag it back to the task, you are sharpening your Shuchu Ryoku. Over time, this focused state becomes a weapon you can summon at will. Instead of being yanked around by every impulse, you gain the ability to lock in. Work that used to take 3 hours of distracted effort can be done in 1 hour of true concentration. You notice your thoughts more clearly, catch distractions earlier, and feel a deep satisfaction when you finish what you started with full intensity. This is more than productivity, it is spiritual training. Shuchu Ryoku strengthens your self-control because it teaches your mind to obey your command, not your cravings. When you decide, for the next hour I am fully here, and you honor that, you are forging inner respect. You begin to trust yourself, and once you trust your own focus, temptation loses power. The same way a samurai steps onto the battlefield knowing his blade will not fail, you step into your tasks knowing your attention will not scatter. That is the true power of laser-like focus. Gaman, enduring discomfort with dignity, is the quiet strength of the warrior who stands firm in the storm without screaming for the rain to stop. In Japanese culture, Gaman is the ability to bear hardship, pain, and pressure with patience, self-control, and grace. It is not about pretending things don't hurt. It is about refusing to let pain dictate your behavior or poison your spirit. The samurai understood that suffering was not an exception in life, but a constant companion. Cold nights, hunger, wounds, fatigue, these were teachers, not enemies. Gaman is choosing to say, I will carry this weight, and I will not break my code while I do. In your life, this means holding your posture in the face of stress, resisting the urge to quit when something feels uncomfortable, and maintaining your character even when circumstances are unfair or brutal. Most people crumble at the first sign of discomfort. A little boredom, a little stress, a little criticism, and they run back to distraction, comfort, and excuses. Gaman trains you to respond differently. Instead of fleeing discomfort, you enter it with calm awareness. When you feel the burn in your muscles, the anxiety before a challenge, or the frustration of slow progress, you breathe and remind yourself, this is the forge. The samurai did not become unshakable by avoiding hardship. They became unshakable by moving through it without losing their dignity. Practicing Gaman means not complaining every time life gets hard, not seeking constant sympathy, and not letting your emotions explode when things don't go your way. You learn to endure the extra hour of study, the early wake-up, the difficult conversation, the lonely grind. Each time you stay steady, instead of collapsing, your capacity expands. Over time, Gaman transforms suffering into a source of pride. You begin to see discomfort as proof that you are pushing your limits instead of staying soft. That cold morning run, that painful workout, that disciplined choice to say no to temptation, these become your silent victories. You realize most people will never taste this strength because they tap out too early. Gaman makes self-control 10x easier because you stop treating discomfort as an emergency that must be escaped and start treating it as a signal that you are on the right path. When cravings hit, when fatigue whispers, when your mind begs for an easier route, you answer with patience instead of panic. You hold the line. You remember that a warrior's worth is not measured when life is easy, but when the weight is heavy and they carry it with honor. In this way, Gaman does not just toughen your body, it refines your spirit into something steady, resilient, and unbreakable in the face of pain. Reigi, discipline through ritual and respect, is the invisible structure that keeps a warrior's spirit from collapsing into chaos. In the way of the samurai, respect was not just bowing or polite words. It was the way they carried themselves, the way they treated their weapons, their training, their time, and the people around them. Reigi is the code that turns ordinary actions into sacred ones. Every bow before training, every careful cleaning of the blade, every precise movement in the dojo, these were rituals that reminded the samurai, I am not here to be casual, I am here to be deliberate. In your life, Reigi means treating your goals, your habits, and your environment with that same seriousness. You don't just try to wake up early, you create a morning ritual. You don't just sometimes focus, you build a pre-work routine that tells your mind, now we enter battle. Discipline becomes fragile when it has no ritual to anchor it. Most people rely on emotion. If they feel motivated, they are disciplined. If they don't, everything collapses. Reigi solves this by giving your discipline a physical shape and repeated pattern. Think of simple rituals, laying out your clothes the night before training, preparing your workspace before deep work, journaling at the same time every evening to review your day. These actions may seem small, but like the samurai bowing before drawing his sword, they shift your state of mind. They separate the ordinary from the intentional. Reigi also extends to how you treat tools and spaces. A warrior did not toss his sword carelessly into a corner, he stored it with care and respect. You can do the same with your phone, your books, your equipment. When you finish, you reset the space. This creates a subtle inner message: I respect this path. I respect myself for walking it. At the heart of Reigi is respect, not just for others, but for your own journey. When you keep your rituals, you are telling yourself, my growth matters enough to be honored. You arrive on time for your own goals. You speak to yourself with firmness, not contempt. You acknowledge mentors, family, or even strangers who support your journey with gratitude and humility instead of entitlement. Over time, these layers of respect build a powerful identity. You no longer see yourself as someone who tries to be disciplined, but as someone who lives by a personal code. That code shows up in the way you greet the day, the way you begin and end your work, the way you train, the way you rest. Reigi makes self-restraint easier, because your actions are no longer random. They are guided by repeated, meaningful patterns. In a world where most people treat their time and habits carelessly, you move like a warrior who understands that every small ritual is another stroke in the forging of an unshakable spirit. Mushin. Quieting the mind to master impulse is the sacred stillness that a warrior cultivates to move with clarity and purpose, unclouded by distraction or fear. In the way of the samurai, Mushin meant having a mind like water, calm, clear, and flowing without hesitation or clutter. When a blade is drawn in battle, there is no room for doubt or second-guessing. The warrior's actions must be instinctive, free from the chaos of overthinking. Mushin is that state where desire, anger, and hesitation fall away, leaving only pure, decisive presence. In everyday life, this means learning to observe your impulses without being controlled by them. To watch cravings, fears, and anxieties arise, then pass like ripples on a pond without drowning your mind in their storm. Most people live under the tyranny of their emotions and fleeting urges. When temptation hits, the mind is flooded with noise. Just one more, you deserve this. It won't matter. Mushin trains you to step back from this chaos. Instead of reacting immediately, you create a gap between impulse and action. You become the calm observer who sees the craving but does not obey it. This is not suppression or avoidance, but a deep understanding that impulses are momentary waves, not permanent masters. Practicing Mushin requires patience and mindfulness, a commitment to daily moments of stillness, whether through meditation, breath control, or focused tasks that quiet the mind's chatter. Over time, the mind learns to settle like a still lake, making space for intentional decisions instead of reflexive reactions. With Mushin, self-control becomes not a struggle of willpower, but a natural flow. When your mind is quiet and clear, distractions lose their grip, and temptations lose their urgency. You act not out of fear or resistance, but from a place of centered strength. This inner calm allows you to face challenges without panic, to endure discomfort without flinching, and to pursue your goals with unwavering focus. Like a samurai wielding a sword with perfect timing and grace, you move through life with precision and confidence, mastering your impulses rather than being mastered by them. Mushin transforms the battlefield of the mind into a place of peace, where your spirit is free to act with wisdom and power. Shitsuke. Self-taming as a way of life is the relentless commitment to shaping oneself beyond fleeting motivation or external approval. In the samurai tradition, Shitsuke was more than practice. It was a lifelong discipline woven into every breath, every step, every moment. It demanded that a warrior build habits so ingrained they became automatic, turning intention into instinct without constant effort. The samurai did not train only when inspired or watched. They trained because their very identity depended on it. Shitsuke is the unyielding process of building character through daily action, the quiet dedication to forging your spirit even when no one sees or celebrates. It is the armor that protects you when motivation fades and the battlefield becomes harsh. For most, discipline is a battle won and lost on willpower alone. But Shitsuke teaches that willpower is limited and unreliable. Instead, you build your fortress from habit and repetition. This means showing up consistently, even on days when your energy is low or your mind protests. It means embedding your practices into rituals so deeply that they no longer require choice, but flow naturally from who you are. Whether it's waking early, controlling your emotions, or resisting distractions, Shitsuke makes these actions a non-negotiable part of your daily existence. The samurai's training was not sporadic or selective. It was constant and unrelenting. In this way, self-training ceases to be a task and becomes the rhythm of your life. Shitsuke also demands accountability and self-respect. It requires you to hold yourself to the highest standard without excuses, to maintain order in your mind and body, regardless of circumstance. When setbacks happen, you do not collapse into despair or blame. You simply return to the practice, again and again, sharpening your focus and reinforcing your will. Over time, Shitsuke transforms chaos into structure, weakness into strength, and intention into mastery. It makes self-training 10x easier because your discipline no longer depends on fleeting feelings but is anchored in a lifestyle, an unbreakable code you live by. Like a samurai who wields his sword with practiced precision in every battle, you carry your self-training into every moment, becoming a warrior forged not just by will, but by unshakable habit. As we stand now at the threshold of transformation, remember that the path of self-control is not a destination but a lifelong journey, a forging fire that tempers the spirit with every choice, every habit, every moment of discipline. The samurai did not become legends overnight. They were shaped in the quiet battles within, the relentless sharpening of mind and will through Kaizen, Shuchu, Ryoku, Gaman, Reigi, Mushin, and Shitsuke. These 7 pillars are not just abstract ideas. They are the tools, the rituals, and the mindset that make self-control not a burden, but a natural extension of who you are. Embrace them, and you step into the legacy of warriors who refuse to be slaves to impulse, who found freedom in restraint and strength in stillness. Your spirit, like steel, will become unbreakable, honed through patience and persistence. I invite you to commit to this path, to forge your character daily, and to walk with honor in the face of every challenge. Thank you for joining this community of modern samurai, fellow warriors dedicated to mastery over themselves. Now, go forth with purpose and break through the limits that once held you back. Your will of steel awaits.